Down here at Paradise Marine in beautiful Gulf Shores, Alabama. We're down here with Gene Myers. We're interviewing Gene today about what's been going on with the history of pontoons down here on that beautiful Alabama Gulf Coast.
I started Paradise Marine in 1994, December 20th, 1994. So we've been here quite a long time. I've been in the boat business since 1980. Well, actually since 1972, but I've been on the Gulf Coast since 1980. First in Fort Walton Beach, and then moved to the Alabama Gulf Coast in 1988.
So I see Paradise Marine is a family-owned business, also known as Team Paradise.
Yes, it is. I started this business, and my sons both work here. Jarrett is my sales manager, and my son Travis is in the service department. So it's basically a family-owned business, and basically, every customer we get is part of our family. And that's basically the way we do business. So Team Paradise is more than just my immediate family. It's my family of customers as well.
So when did you get into selling pontoon boats?
I actually sold pontoon boats back in the early 80s when I was at Fort Walton Beach at a marina there. Basically the first time I ever got them, and they were at that time, it was a very crude pontoon boat. Built in, actually it's built in Beaumont, Texas by a company who was building other things. And, it was built with aluminum pontoons, but it had galvanized cross members, and they didn't hold up in salt water. They were strictly a freshwater boat. After I started my dealership years later in 1994, within 2 years I'd picked up a line of pontoon boats, and we were basically the first people probably the first people on the, in our area in the central Gulf Coast to carry pontoon boats.
And Gene, what were some of those boats like back then? Well, was it the party barge? Was this the beginning of the party barge?
Well, the term party barge is actually, it's become a generic term. It's that term is from a name of a boat that Bass Tracker came out with, and Bass Tracker probably had a lot to do with putting pontoons on a map. Basically an affordable boat. Maybe it wasn't at that time on the high end of the food chain. And there were other manufacturers that were out there and had been out there for years building pontoon boats. But the evolution of the pontoon boat, since in those days the pontoon boats were pretty basic, slow. They were two tubes. They're not what they are today. So I've seen the industry evolve in the almost 25 years that I've been selling pontoon boats.
What were some of the benefits of owning a pontoon versus a typical V-hull boat?
Well, I think a pontoon is it's probably gives you more of a family boat than about any boat out there. It is. Back when I first started selling pontoons, they were, it was an older buyer. It wasn't about speed. They aren't fast boats. They weren't fast boats. They are now, but they weren't then. And a lot of people looked upon them maybe as, oh, that's my grandpa's pontoon, an old folks boat. Get on the lake and putt around and watch a sunset. But a pontoon boat is actually a great place because of all the seating in the pontoon boat. It's basically your living room on the water. So when you get in these boats and you're out there, you got all your kids in the boat, you got your family in the boat. If you've got toddlers, they're encapsulated in the boat. You've got a fencing, so women feel much more comfortable in a pontoon boat, especially if they have small children. So basically, it was an older, buyer back in those days, I would say, that did it. And a lot of pontoon business, you got to remember, the pontoon business started up in the north, let's say Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, all those little lakes. Those places abound with small lakes, and pontoon boats were perfect for that. And so then people started seeing the benefits of them, and so then dealers around saltwater, people thought saltwater and aluminum, well, that's really not true nowadays. But basically, those boats started drifting, and people who retired down here and maybe had a pontoon boat up on a lake, let's say in Ohio, and they come down here, they still want to have a pontoon boat. They still want to do it. But in a lot of ways, we have a bigger body of water in a coastal area, so it's bigger, usually rougher. But that's basically, I think, what the expectations were of customers. And so a lot of that was just a slow drift from up north as these boats came south.
What are some of the brands that you guys offer here at the Pontoon Superstore?
The only brand we sell is basically Forest River Marine. And people say, oh, what's Forest River Marine? Well, Forest River Marine is part of Forest River Industries, which is the largest camper and trailer and RV manufacturer in the world by far. And that's a Berkshire Hathaway company. And of course, we know how successful Berkshire Hathaway is under the guidance of Warren Buffett. If you had any of his stock back in the 50s, you'd be sitting pretty fat and pretty right now. So basically, Forest River Marine is a division of Forest River Industries. And Forest River builds 3 pontoon brands, the Berkshire, the Trifecta, and the South Bay. We sell all 3 of those brands here. Boats are basically built all the same as far as the chassis and stuff. When those boats are rolling through the plant, you don't know what it's going to be until it gets further down the line. And those changes are basically in the outside rails and the styling of the boat. So for every Berkshire, South Bay, and Trifecta, they all have the same amount of models in their product line. At the Superstore, we're probably the first dealer that totally got rid of and no longer carries a 2-tube pontoon boat. Because for somebody to take their hard-earned money and spend it on a 2-tube pontoon boat, they're really making a bad mistake. The value is in that 3rd tube. The value is on the better performance, the better fuel efficiency, the better rough water ride, especially in our coastal area with the bays and the sounds and the intercoastals. So we were the first one to do it. Most of our competition still carries a 2-tube boat. They're selling a boat at a price point. But basically, for the small amount of money to go to a tri-toon chassis, and they make usually 2 or 3 types, but if you go into a tri-toon chassis on a 22-foot boat at our dealership, you're not going to spend more than about $2,500. And then that $2,500, you're going to get the 3rd tube, you're going to get the lifting strakes, you're going to get hydraulic C-Star steering. It's not mechanical steering, and you get that underskin, which gives you that flow of water shooting through there, which is important when you're talking about pontoon performance. So basically, the 3rd tube is the only way to go. But too many dealers still cling to the old technology, much like people still think that 4-strokes have taken over the 2-stroke market. There are hardly any 2-stroke outboards out there anymore. There's one manufacturer that tries to make them viable, but I don't think they do a good job. The rest of the industry, 90% of the industry, is going to 4-stroke. And I think that's what you'll see in pontoons is more and more, when I first started selling tri-toons, maybe they were 10% of the inventory. But now they're 100% of our inventory, and for our manufacturer, they're probably 80% of what they build. A 2-tube boat that's putting around on a small lake is great. Don't buy a 3rd tube, you don't need it. You get down in a coastal environment, we know what happens in a coastal environment. We helped develop the first saltwater pontoons on the Gulf Coast. We do a lot of things different the way we design our boats. We were the first to put zincs on the boat to prevent corrosion. We use full keel guards on our boats when you beach your boat on the beaches around here. We use 25-inch transoms on our boat. That means we use an offshore height motor so that the power head is 5 inches higher out of the water. Most dealers are selling a 20-inch or shorter shaft motor. We invest in having that higher motor. A lot of anodized aluminum. And now that everybody's got a saltwater pontoon boat. Everybody has realized that the saltwater and coastal market is important. So everybody has adapted their boats. We also went to Forest River a while back and we did this around 2004. We came out and had them design a boat for us called a Paradise Pontoon. And it was really where we tweaked and put and did our saltwater options on. and decided to build a boat that was more for a coastal use. So basically, the Paradise Pontoon, we went to Forest River and we said we're going to use this design boat, but we want to offer these. We wanted to be an extremely good value. So we did an option package with them that was not basically on a but we combined some different options that we wanted built into our boat. So every boat is very much similar. Colors are different and, you know, some options, but by doing so, we were able to just, you know, like a Henry Ford type thing, we're able to keep the cost down, offer a tremendous amount of value, add a bunch of options, you know, basically not a lot more cost. So again, going to the value equation, we wanted a maximum amount of value. Every one of them is a 222 boat. They're rated for up to 200 horsepower, and we sell a lot of these boats. It's our #1 selling boat. So that chassis, there's not a cheaper boat. Every chassis in Forest River plant is built exactly the same way. It doesn't matter if it's a $20,000 pontoon chassis boat or a $150,000 boat. That deck underneath that floor is exactly the same. Very, very high quality. Forest River is the only one who uses pressurized pontoons. They're the first manufacturer to use a one-piece composite deck to replace plywood. And that is another, you know, they're always on a leading edge. So they're a big company, and they're a good partner to be with. They give outstanding customer service. So we're very, very happy with that relationship. So if you're looking for a pontoon boat, Paradise Pontoon is exceptional value, but we also carry the South Bay lines, the Trifecta, and the Berkshire. If you're looking, those are usually more of an upscale boat with maybe more creature comforts. And what makes a higher end boat higher end? Usually the upholstery, the flooring, the sound systems, some of the options. That is what makes, you know, the difference in what, you know, when you get. But in our case, we don't have a cheap chassis. Some manufacturers use a cheaper chassis. We don't use a cheaper chassis, and that's one of the things. We look at the way a South Bay product or a Forest River product is built. It is extremely, extremely well built boat.